What's up, party people? On today's video, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite production techniques, which is sidechain compression. When I first started producing about 10 years ago, I knew what sidechain compression was from tracks like Warp 1.9 by Steve Aoki and other tracks that had that really big pumping sound. To learn how to do it in my tracks, I simply YouTubed it, I found a couple of things and implemented what I learned into my tracks, and I got the sound I wanted. But I didn't really understand the science behind it, or as a production tool, how it can help you do things like mix, bass, and kick. I just knew it was a pumping sound and what it could do. I actually used it in one of my first tracks, which you can listen to right here. And as you can hear, very, very bad mixing, very, very odd everything, but you can hear that pumping sound. So today, I wanted to show all of you the exact science behind what sidechain compression is. And to teach you, we're gonna head over to the kitchen sink.
Okay, so this might be a little weird, but just bear with me in this example here. For today's purposes, we're gonna treat the water as if it was an audio waveform like this. And we're going to treat this Chemex coffee maker as if this was the track's output for that sound you just heard. So to recap, the water represents this sound that you're hearing right now, and the Chemex represents the track output of the saw chords that you just heard. Now we're going to introduce a sidechain compressor, represented by a glass cup. Listen to what happens when I introduce the glass cup. Do you hear that pumping? The glass cup is essentially turning the volume down every time it's being introduced. Whenever the sidechain compressor kicks in, aka the glass cup, we hear less volume of the saw chords that you're hearing in the normal track. You can hear a pretty classic pumping effect if you introduce this to a certain quarter note or BPM. Don't mind the splashing I'm getting everywhere. So now we can see from another angle. As you can see, the output of the track is being reduced. There's less water flowing into the top of the Chemex. You've probably heard this effect on tons of tracks before, but just didn't know what to call it. It's sidechain compression. A nice, smooth pumping effect. Now, I haven't made a ton of YouTube videos, but this is officially the goofiest I have ever felt while making one.
All right, enough of that Build Nice Science experiment stuff. Let's head into Ableton now and actually put this into practice and see what it looks like inside a digital audio workstation. So now that we're in Ableton, what I've got here is a Sawtooth sample, which I made by using the Tal Uno X plugin, which is a Juno replica plugin, which I love. Sounds really cool and original and vibey. And then we also have a Spectra kick sample from the Spectra sample pack from Mr. Bill. This kick is an F, and the sample here is a C major chord, so just getting that out there. It's not a big deal. So now, what we're going to do is we're going to play back the Sawtooth sample real quick, so you can see it one more time. Cool, and now here's the Sawtooth sample with the kick. So in our previous example, the Sawtooth being the water and the kick being the cup, right now the cup and the water are separate from each other. It is not being moved under the faucet quite yet. So in order to do that, we're actually going to grab the sidechain compressor. And actually, we're just going to search compressor, because I forgot they can't do that quite yet. And grab the regular old Ableton compressor, and we're going to put it on the Sawtooth sample. So now what compression does by default is it reduces gain. It does gain reduction. It does gain reduction. It reduces gain, meaning that it should take volume down. Now, compressors obviously have output gain, and you can readjust that in the normal sets of a compressor. But today, we're going to use the compressor's sidechain ability right here, and we're going to use that to trigger from the kick sample. So essentially what that means is just like the water cup, every time we put in the cup of water, it's going to stop the flow of water for a second, allowing another piece of audio to flow through. So let's go ahead and grab, we already got our compressor. Let's put our side chain here. And now we're going to trigger the side chain from this kick sample right here, track 2. So here's our track 2, here's our track 1. And now what's going to happen here is as I play the kick sample here, you can see we have audio into the threshold meter right here. So right now, to get gain reduction, all we need to do is reduce the threshold until we hear it. And I'm gonna go ahead and solo this, so you just gotta hear just the water, or in this case, the sawtooth sample. So here, do that little pumping. Let's make it a little more drastic here. Right? So that's literally the cup going under. The cup is now going under the water, reducing the amount of water that can go into, or stopping the amount of water that can go into the Chemex coffee maker. Now, in this case, this track here is the Chemex water maker, this whole track, okay? It's not our master, it's just this track. The kick is a totally different track, as if a different faucet, right? So this is just interacting with this faucet here, and we're putting a Sidechain compressor on our single faucet right now. So I'm going to play this one more time so you can hear it. Right? And so now the attack and release, what that's going to do is it's going to basically act as how fast the compressor is going to work. So we're going to want to attack as fast as possible because we want it to trigger right when the kick comes in. So it'll, as soon as we cross the threshold, the kick sample is going to reduce the gain reduction, or I'm sorry, it's going to reduce the gain of the sawtooth sample. And the release is basically how fast we move, or how quickly we move the cup away from the faucet. So now let's go ahead and hear it now with the kick, or attack faster. Just a little bit faster and harsher. Now release up. It takes longer to get back to the regular volume, right? Now this is all cool in theory, but let's say you have something a little more practical. Let's go ahead and listen to this with a bunch of kicks. So I've got the kick on every quarter note here, as you can see, and then let's break the release down a little bit so we hear how move it faster, and let's go. Right? So you can hear that pumping effect like I explained in the beginning of the video. And obviously it stops because there's nothing triggering the compressor after this point. So very simple. We can push the release up a little bit. So it never actually gets back to that full volume. We can make it faster. See, a little grainy there. Let's try to reduce that. That's a little faster, a little more electro-y, if you want to call that. And that's essentially what sidechain compression is. So very simple, very quick and easy. That's all sidechain compression does. Now, probably the biggest thing that you're going to use sidechain compression for, in the sense of mixing, not just for like sound design, which is just kind of give that pumping effect, is to think about the aspect of low end. So in low end, I always think of my mixing almost like an upside down pyramid or like a tree, where at the low end, you want the minimal amount of elements in the low end. So in this case, if you have a kick and a bass line, you're going to want those two elements to be separate from each other. So the subwoofer, which isn't a very complex speaker, right, because it's so big, it has to recreate these really bottom end frequencies, which is the hardest frequency to recreate. It needs really clean data, really clean signal going through it. So if you use sidechain compression, you can make it so that your kick and your bass will never go at the exact same time. You can tweak them a little bit so that way there's less kick, or I'm sorry, there's less bass when the kick comes in. So let's actually see that in action right here. Okay, so I just brought in a new sample here. This is the strong bass riff in F. Normally it's 100 BPM, but I pitched up to 128. Full disclosure, this is a sample we used to inspire one of our Chelsey noise tracks coming up. It's called Right Now, so be on the look for it. It's coming on the next album. But here you can hear the bass by itself. Pretty cool. Let's actually put it to Complex Pro warping. A little smoother with Complex Pro. And now over here, we are going to grab we're going to listen to it with our kick and our bass. So let's listen to the two together. So the bass and the kick are playing at the exact same time. It kind of sounds muddy, right? Right, I don't love that. So let's go ahead and grab the compressor. We're going to throw it on the bass just like we did before on the chord. And we're going to put it in sidechain mode one more time. And this time it's going to grab from the kick again, just like last time. And now as we play it, we should be able to see some of the kick crossing the threshold. So let's go ahead and just solo the bass. And let's bring down the threshold and attack as fast as possible, because the second the kick comes in, we want it to reduce. So in sidechain compression, always remember your attack should most likely be as fast as possible, unless you're doing something kind of weird, which is totally cool too. Music is a journey. You can do whatever the heck you want in it. All right, so we're getting a little bit of pump in there. Let's start the release a little bit. So now we can hear that it's pumping. It's totally pumping. So before I was trying to get rid of that click a little bit. You guys can hear this click. And sometimes that's just a problem with the Ableton compressor. You can increase the attack. You can dial in the release to kind of get rid of that. For the purpose of today, I'm not going to show you how to do that. But let's go ahead and hear it with the kick now. Right? So now they sound really tight together. Let's turn off the sidechain compressor. Oh, muddy, angry. Right? And check out our master meter for a second. If you look at my master here, without the sidechain compression, this is what we've got here. And we're peaking. And obviously you want to make your tracks as loud as possible if you're making like electronic music for the most part. So by turning on the sidechain compressor, we stop peaking. Meaning you've just got some hidden like gain in there, right? Because before you had everything peaking at the same time, but now everything's gelled out. You're not making your master peak. And I didn't do anything to that, right? These are all the same levels I've had just in there. I just turned on the sidechain compression and we can immediately see how much more headroom we get just by having the sidechain compressor on. So yeah, 2 quick ways to show you how to use sidechain compression. We showed you the pump, and then of course I showed you the ability of mixing it with the bass. But I hope you guys like this. Please let me know down in the comments if this kind of made sense to you, if before you're confused by sidechain compression, or if overall this was silly and the water thing I should never do again. Please give me a subscribe if you like my vibe. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, I'll leave you guys with just some random water noises and water sounds until we're done. Thanks.